Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, January 8th, 2023, coming at you live from Floored Media in Rockville Center. Another big show coming up for you tonight. Stefen Rosner here to hang out, stepping in for Chris Botta to host the show. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Ethan Sears from New York Post will be joining us. And we have a couple of frenemies invading here. We'll get to that a little bit later, but we got some guys hanging out on the couch. We'll see what that's all about a little bit later. But Stefen, great to have you here. How you doing, bud?
Good. Always a pleasure.
Yeah? Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. So let's keep it going.
Positive.
Want to remind you all that we are presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagels, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington, 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. And, of course, UBS Arena at Belmont Park. Also proud to be sponsored by Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. And the brand new sponsor, Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game for you, from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens and unplug your game for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, or Game Night Live communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events. We're located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village, and you can go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe, find your crowd, unplug your game. So, Stefen Rosner.
Yes.
Not the greatest trip out west, huh?
No. I mean, it could have gone worse. Could have been a win. It could have been winless.
It could have been winless. They start in Seattle. You think maybe, they can put a win out there. I mean, look, they're a better team, but they end up putting a crappy performance, and that ended up being the whole theme for the week, unfortunately. They go out to Western Canada. They go to Vancouver. They get the win there. It looks like, okay, they made up for what transpired in Seattle, despite the slow start once again over there. Then they have the back-to-backs in Alberta against Edmonton and Calgary. They drop both in very alarming fashion, and here we are now. They're basically hanging on for dear life here to that second wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference, and we can get into the games in hand that the teams behind them have and all that, but literally hanging on for dear life. So what did you see out of that trip, and what do you make of this precarious position that the Islanders are in now?
So you saw more of the same, like you said. Slow starts have been a problem all year, and I think this road trip was just every game. The starts got worse, and worse, and you wonder, okay, what's going into that? Is it the, preparation? It sounds like when you talk to the players and coaches, and we'll ask Ethan in a second about that, there's nothing's changing. They don't know what the reason is. Obviously, the biggest issue for the Islanders is getting on the forecheck quick enough. Once they get on the forecheck, that's how they establish their game. They're not doing that. They're allowing goals early in periods. And again, this is a team that could come back in second and thirds. We saw the Magic earlier in the year.
Right.
But it didn't really happen. It's the Vancouver Canucks game. Again, these are teams that you went out west where you could have come home with a 500 record at the minimum against these teams.
And you would have said, okay.
And the goaltending, too. The biggest thing I look at is, I think 3 out of the 4, all 4 goalies they faced, under 900 save percentages. Yeah. Now, what you'd want to do against them is fire shots.
Right.
That seems like the right thing to do.
You would think.
Even if you don't score, get the goalie moving, get him under pressure, all that. They didn't do that. They allowed those goalies to get into a rhythm. Martin Jones got into a rhythm.
Yep.
They abused Spencer Martin's glove hand like they abused Jarry a couple years ago in the playoffs. I mean,
sure,
every shot. But besides that, Markstrom hasn't had a great year. They didn't really pepper him.
Right.
And it's just, they saw the same thing over and over. I mean, even Jake Campbell is one of the worst goalies in the league statistically this year, and you just don't get enough shots early. You let Edmonton get on the power play early. It was just a mess. And again, they looked better as those games went on, but you put yourself in such a hole, put so much pressure on your team. Again, you can't rely to come back. It's a hard league. Every team's good.
If there's anything we've learned from this team, and not just this season, but even years past, but it's kind of coming back this season, is it doesn't matter what goaltender the opposition puts in. The Islanders do a great job of making them look great.
I mean, look at that Lankinen, the game against Nashville earlier in the year. They pepper 50-plus shots on Lankinen. Lankinen's not an amazing goalie, but they made him look like Brodeur or any of those guys.
Yes.
And it's not even the shots. It's the high-danger shots. One of these games on the road trip, I don't think the Islanders had a high-danger shot till halfway through the second. I mean, you're not going to win games like that. These goalies, as much as they struggle, they're going to stop the shots. One, they hit him in the chest, and two, the the low danger from the outside, they're going to stop those. You got to put pressure, high danger shots, get traffic. That's the biggest thing too. I mean, we saw Vancouver, the goals that Bo Horvat scored, the deflection is
right.
The other teams are crashing the net, getting deflections in the high slot. The Islanders aren't doing that. And even, when you do get the shots on goal, where's the guys for the rebounds? This team, the Islanders aren't going to snipe from the corners all the time like that Kadri goal we saw against Calgary. No one on the Islanders is really going to snipe like that.
Right.
So you got to get
what could have been
area.
if Nazem actually had it worked out here on the island?
What could have been, right?
What could have been? Ed, buddy, you're looking great there behind the glass. That hat is fantastic.
Think so?
Yeah, it looks really good. Much better than the hat you were wearing last week, I have to say. Very fashionable.
Yeah, I'd have to say after last week, we were wearing the Rangers Ed podcast hat. I wore it as a good sport for a bet. I didn't even place.
How many showers did you take after that show?
I mean, the dandruff is still strong.
The flakes are still apparent. You had to use
Head and shoulders
extra strength shampoo to get that out.
Yes.
Well, we did say we had some frenemies hanging out with us here tonight, and we might as well let the cat out of the bag. Somehow these guys snuck into the studio tonight, and we got Ed and Mike over there on the couch hanging out with us. How you doing, boys?
How we doing, Sean?
Doing great.
You have a knack for putting me on the spot. Last time you put me on the spot with the bet, we came out on top with that one. Now we come in friendly, and you put us on the spot trying to chirp us on your couch. So,
well, listen, it's a big displeasure to have you. Hate that you're here, but you're here on the couch. So I mean, I guess we got to roll with it.
Let's do it.
I'm glad those hats are on your heads. And not ours. But
where they belong.
Pleasure to have you. We'll get you guys involved a little bit later. Thanks a lot for hanging out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions for these two.
Folks in the chat.
Keep them classy.
Keep them classy. But when we hit questions brewing later, if you have any questions for our Ranger fan frenemies over there, you can chime in or you can ignore them completely. That's fine too. That doesn't bother us at all. But they're going to be hanging out with us, so really appreciate them hanging out here. And we're going to jump back into the Islander talk here. So let's talk a little Matt Barzal, Stefen. You got the injury, the unexpected injury on Friday. He was basically a late scratch. What's the latest on that?
So no update. The Islanders do not give updates. We've known this year, whether it's lower body, upper body, we still have no idea when Pelech's coming back. He's supposed to skate soon. But with Barzal, you just found out he took warm-ups Friday. He was in warm-ups. It seemed like Ratu was going to be a scratch. Twitter went nuts for that for 15 minutes until Ratu's back in. Barzal, they said it was, lower body. But you look... The game before, he went hard behind the Oilers' net, came up a little slow, stayed in the game, played that shift out, and you look back, okay, that's probably where the injury occurred. You would have to think it's pretty minor because he did take warm-ups, and it was one of those, okay, he couldn't go. Same way we saw Zizekas take warm-ups, Ratu comes into the lineup, whatever, that situation where it was just a minor thing, so you're hoping he doesn't miss time because right now he's your hottest Islander.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, hopefully it ends up being short-term, and it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, when Pelech went out, which was like a month ago now, which is crazy.
December 6th against the Blues.
So there you go, essentially a month ago. And we got a question in Questions Brewing about Pelech being out and whatnot. We were talking about basically a comparison between what hurts more, right? Matt Barzal being out or Adam Pelech, and here we are with both of them out, which is not ideal.
They don't help.
Right, and we saw what could happen on Friday, but I mean, even with Barzal in the lineup prior, I mean, they have these struggles, and it's just it's a little concerning. I mean, look, I guess if you want to look at the glass half full here, there's still half of the season of 41 games to go for them to get it together, and for guys like Pelech to get healthy, and fingers crossed that Barzal is just a little bit of a blip here, and maybe he's ready to go this coming week. But we're seeing how the depth of this team is being challenged. We're seeing how Sebastian Aho is obviously looking a lot better this season as he had previously. I think we were all ready to say his book is closed with the New York Islanders. He's definitely revived himself a little bit. Witherspoon is showing a little promise back there. But, I mean, I think we have to be honest with ourselves and say it's probably not enough.
No.
And there's probably a good amount of goals that have been, forfeited against over these last, collections of games here, where if Pelech had been in there, maybe at least you get a couple of points out of these games. Because I know it's not the Islanders' MO this season to get to overtime and shootout when they lose, but maybe that could have happened if you had Pelech out there to prevent a couple of goals and maybe help send a couple of goals the other way.
I mean, no one's replacing Pelech. That is an elite top defenseman in this league, and I think people look at it and go, okay, he's just a shutdown defenseman, but he changes everything. The transition game, I mean, we saw Pulak miss time last year and how important that was that he was out, but Pelech gets pucks out of the defensive zone.
Right.
Right now, the Islanders are getting pinned early in games too often. They have chances to clear, and they don't. And you look at Pelech, and he's got a long reach. He keeps players to the outside. He gets the puck out. And right now, you're not seeing enough guys step up. Noah Dobson, as much offense as he brings, since Pelech's been out, his defense has been shaky. Pulak's defense has been shaky. Roman, I mean, all these, no one's really on the back end stepped up to the point where it's, okay, we could handle Pelech being out. Same thing when Pelech, tore his Achilles. The Islanders treaded water for the rest of that season.
Right.
They snuck in with the whole COVID situation, but when Pelech is missing, he seems to be the glue. I know on the show when you were with Bada is, all right, who being out hurts more, Barzal or Pelech? Right. It's hands down Pelech, especially when you're a team that doesn't rely on offense. You're a defensive-minded team. As much as the Lamberts changed that a little bit with more offense, your bread and butter is your defense. And Pelech right now is
and
the
your
glue
goaltending,
which is part of the defense.
Right.
And Pelech's the glue that holds this team together. He helps in every facet, and when he's out, you could see the Islanders are such a different team.
Yeah, it's tough having those guys out, and it's such a shame with Barzal finally starting to score goals. Yeah. And you hope that he gets back out there. I know we chatted before the show. You wanted to kind of highlight this before we bring Ethan on. You wanted to talk a little bit about the dynamic between Oliver Wahlstrom and Casey Cizikas, them kind of swapping places on Barzal's wing. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So you look at the numbers with Barzal and Wahlstrom. They played 30 games together. Nice even number there, and you got some offense, and you got pretty strong defense again. That's with Bailey mostly on that line. But there was a major issue with Wahlstrom. He was not finding open space in the offensive zone, and Barzal is a puck possessor. What Barzal does so well, and this is why he needs a superstar on his line or someone that could just score the chances that he creates, is that he draws all eyes towards him. All players come towards him. That other player on his line, whether it's the right winger or left winger, needs to find the open space. And not only that, when the puck comes to him, shoot. No, you can't.
Yes.
You can't hold it.
For the love of God, shoot the puck. And the guy's got a shot.
And I think you're seeing Barzal score more goals. And I looked at the stats. I think he's up like 0.2 shots per game with Wahlstrom out. But the thing is without Wahlstrom, it's forcing Barzal to now look towards goal. He wants to set up Wahlstrom. As much as Wahlstrom didn't score every time he got set up, he's trying to do that. The thing with Cizikas, which has been such a positive, is that Cizikas knows what he has to do.
He's creating space
immediately.
For Barzal. Yeah.
Look at that goal against Vancouver. This is the definition of what Wahlstrom needs to do if he comes back in and plays, is Barzal cut in the slot to the strong side with the puck. And Cizikas read what Barzal was doing, quickly skid up the ice on the left side. Barzal didn't even have to look. Fed Cizikas shoots the puck, snipes Martin. It was the definition of what a player has to do with Barzal, and that's what you didn't see enough of with Wahlstrom. And that's why you're seeing such a strong game between Cizikas and Barzal. They understand. Cizikas understands exactly what he has to do. They're scoring goals. Barzal's understanding. Cizikas, even the goal that was set up by Bailey, it was a snipe. Cizikas, as a centerman, it's such a key thing too because Barzal could play the wing. Cizikas wins faceoffs. Cizikas knows the positional play of a centerman. He picked up a pass in the neutral zone, got the puck up quickly. The Islanders scored. Again, Wahlstrom's still struggling with the positional aspect of playing in all three zones. That guy is a sniper. Right. Offensive player. He's been much better defensively, which has impacted his offense. Cizikas just has the speed to keep up with Barzal, but just as an NHL veteran, he knows what he has to do, and it's worked. And obviously, we didn't see it Friday because Barzal was out. And I don't think it's not a long-term solution. But right now, with so many guys banged up, Cizikas has fit in perfectly. And I assume if Barzal is back and no one else is healthy, Cizikas is going to stay with Barzal.
Yeah, he probably will in at least the immediate, but I think we both know, and we'll probably get into this with Ethan, whom we're about to break for, but Casey Cizikas is not your ideal wingman for Matt Barzal.
He's not a winger.
The ideal wingman for Matt Barzal right now apparently isn't on the team because that's been a big issue for the squad pretty much ever since he joined. But we got a break for Ethan. I want to thank all you guys for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and, of course, for tuning in later on your favorite podcast providers. We're going to take that break. When we come back, Ethan Sears of the New York Post will be joining us.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
Miss the days of mixtapes and arcades? Love the taste of a bold IPA or maybe an ice-cold lager? There's a place where all of those magical things come together. Lost Farmer Brewing Company. At 63A East 2nd Street in the heart of Mineola, Lost Farmer combines a love of the 80s and a passion for quality beer to create brews that can only be described as gnarly, radical, and totally tubular. The retro vibe of the tasting bar will amp up your nostalgia, while the blend of both local and exotic ingredients amp up your taste buds. Beer not your thing? Crack open a can of cider or sip a Chardonnay on the extended patio. Order up from the snack menu. You can even bring your own. If you're more of a homebody, pick up a growler to go or order online at lostfarmerbrewing.com. And for all of Long Island's hockey fans, Lost Farmer created the delicious Stable Shaker American Lager to celebrate the newly built UBS Arena at Belmont Park. Whether you're at the stable for a hockey game, concert, or a comedy show, you can find Stable Shaker by can and draft around the arena. So raise a cup to the next cup with Lost Farmer Brewery, the future of Long Island craft beer.
Giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more aisles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Join us on the program on the line right now from the New York Post is the great Ethan Sears. Ethan, welcome back to the program, man. How you been?
I've been good. Thanks so much, Sean and Stefen, for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So listen, right off the bat here, you had an interesting piece in the Post talking about the New York Islanders, their plight right now, and one Louis Lamoriello. So why don't we start with that, where it's a perfect time here. We're at the halfway mark, 41 games to go for the New York Islanders. And basically you singled out Lou, talking about how it's on him with the struggles that they've had. He voiced confidence in this team in the beginning of the season, saying that, it's okay, we didn't make any moves, and basically kind of highlighting that maybe that's biting him in the butt a little bit here with the struggles they've had. So maybe you can kind of just expand on that and chat about Lou Lamoriello's job or lack thereof so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all had talked about it during the offseason, right, when they were linked to a lot of these guys, and for one reason or another, and to be completely fair to Lou, we don't necessarily know all the specifics that went into their lack of moves.
Sure.
But they made zero changes to the forward group, right? And we all had kind of identified they need someone on Barzal's wing, and just some kind of extra scoring punch here. And they didn't get that. And now you look at what this team is halfway through the season, and they might make the playoffs. They might not. I wouldn't quite count them out just yet, but they don't really look like a Stanley Cup contender. I think we can all agree on that.
Yes.
And one of the biggest reasons why is that they don't quite have an offensive punch. And yeah, the injuries have been part of the reason why.
Sure.
And obviously Matt Barzal getting hurt does not help at all.
Right.
But this is kind of a one-dimensional offensive team in that so much of what they do comes from the forecheck. And when they're able to do that, they do that really, really well, right? And we've seen that at times where they get aggressive and it works. But when they don't have that, they're really unable. They don't quite have the skill, sans Barzal, to create off of controlled entries, off of controlled breakouts. And I think that's part of why you've seen these struggles on the power play, because they need to do stuff there when they're possessing the puck, not trying to get it back. And these problems were all, at least to an extent, kind of predictable over the summer, when these moves weren't happening. So, obviously there's still a trade deadline to go, right? And I think we would all be shocked if they stayed quiet a second year running there. But right now, the problems that this team has were the problems that a lot of us really thought that they would have over the summer, which tells you something, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, they've struggled enough offensively with Barzal in the lineup. So when you saw him out Friday, your expectations probably went down a couple of notches, right? But, you look at this situation, you had a lot to say about Lou Lamoriello, and you bring up the power play and how dreadful that's looked lately, and it certainly has a lot to do with the lack of offensive punch. Maybe you can make an argument that if Palmieri was around and not hurt, it would have helped a little bit, sure. But at the end of the day, it's pretty glaring what's going on there, and I kind of want to use that to seg into Lane Lambert. and what you thought of his performance as a head coach behind the bench through 41 games. We're all kind of settled into, I suppose, his methods. You've had plenty of press conferences with him now, pre and post, and maybe you can just talk about what you think about Lane Lambert's job so far through the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lane has done a reasonably fine job. He's changed a lot of the way they play and made them, more aggressive offensively, and they seem to like that, which is good. I think kind of for the roster he's been given, he's done a solid job. I think it's pretty hard to complain about it, and to me, the holes are more in how the roster is constructed than what Lane has done with it, so to speak. I guess if you want to argue maybe Barry would be better, maybe he wouldn't. But to me, this roster is kind of performing more or less to its level, right? Like they're right on the playoff cut line. That's kind of where I thought they would be at the start of the season. So
right.
I would say, Lane's doing a, good job. Maybe not great, but totally good.
I'll take that. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have any complaints about him if I were a fan of this team.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
Ethan nailed it on the head. I mean, he's playing with the cards that he's been dealt. He doesn't have a deep roster. He has to use players that are underperforming. The call-ups have been great, and me and Ethan have talked about it often about these slow starts. And Ethan, I just wanted to ask you, obviously this road trip, they get outscored 7-2 in first periods, 48-28 in shots. I mean, abysmal starts. When you're talking to the players and Lambert, I know they give the cliche answers, but have they said anything about are they changing their preparation at all? Are they just staying true to what they know how to do? Is there any insight on that?
Well, I mean, we kind of know that they've played with their preparation just from they've changed whether or not they're skating in the morning, whether or not they're practicing the day before. And that's not something that they've told us. It's something that we see covering the team, right? So from that standpoint, yeah, they've changed it up. I don't know that it's really helped one way or another. But, when we've talked to them, it's kind of just been, they don't really know why this is happening, but it keeps happening, and they kind of don't necessarily have, at least for us, an answer. I would assume that might be different when they talk internally. But I mean, it's really kind of incredible that 41 games into the season, it's still a consistent problem that they're coming out in these first periods and getting outplayed the way they are. I think over the 4 games of the trip, it was like 7-2 was the cumulative score in first periods, which is just not good enough.
Ethan, from your point of view, how much does that fall on the coaching staff versus the players? Now, obviously, the players on the ice are the guys that are doing the job, right? And they're getting paid a hell of a lot of money to be ready for the first period, to be ready to get out there. And they've had some games where they've had, certainly not enough. But how much of that falls on the coaching staff to kind of get these guys set, get these guys straight and say, hey, guys, you guys know what you're doing out there, what you're not doing out there. Get yourselves ready, get your asses together, and, let's see some fire in the first period here,
I would say it's somewhat equal. If the Islanders had a younger team, maybe, then I would put it more on the coaching staff. But remember, this is an old, experienced group that has been in playoff races before, has played important games before, has kind of a deep leadership core that obviously knows that this is unacceptable, right? So, I view it as, maybe it's something that the players are doing. Maybe it's part on the coaches. It's hard to say, right? When you're not, behind some of those closed doors.
Right.
But I wouldn't throw it all on the coaching staff just because, this is a really veteran team that doesn't necessarily need to be like harangued into working hard. Right.
Yeah. Going back to working hard, Ethan, I mean, effort's been questioned numerous times throughout the year, especially on this road trip. And you have guys like Parise who say it's not effort, but when you're watching these games, is it just the minor mistakes that are causing this, or do you think that coming out of the gate they're just not giving 100%?
I wouldn't question the effort of professional athletes unless it's in a really extraordinary circumstance. These guys they get paid a lot of money and they're here for a reason, right? Like they work hard, and we're in the room after games and they've got sweat coming off them and they're breathing hard, and I don't really see any reason to necessarily go there. But I do think like it's a little hard to pin down because they are getting kind of, out of the gate in these games. Like we've said, it's really stark. That first period against Edmonton was just awful.
Yeah.
There's no other word for it. And then, we talked to them after the game, and Noah Dobson said to me, like, we can't spot them 2 or 3 goals every game. That's not a way to win. And then a night later, it's 3-0 in the first period.
Yeah.
And if you want to say that game was a little bit better just from a game flow perspective for them, I guess I would agree, but that's kind of damning by faint praise, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Ethan. And just to key on this halfway through the season theme here, who's stood out for you as far as pulling their weight for this team? Obviously, a very roller coaster, up and down season, but who've been the heroes for this team so far? Maybe after that you can talk about some guys who maybe aren't pulling their weight the way they should. Obviously, some guys maybe have a little bit of an incomplete with some injuries. It's hard to talk about Palmieri with how long he's been out. He's been out more than once now. But who stands out to you as the leaders of this team? And I know some of these answers are probably obvious, but maybe you can just chime in and let us know what you've seen from the guys on the ice so far.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, like Sorokin, Barzal, Nelson, Lee, Dobson, I guess would be in that kind of obvious group of the guys who are, have been really at the top of their game for basically all year. I would also single out Zach Parise. What he's done this year at age 38 has been really, really impressive to me. 12 goals and he plays special teams. He's been on his game almost every night, it's really something to see. Because last year it took him so long to get going. He kind of struggled through that first part of the season. And, you wondered if maybe he was nearing the end, at age 37, and now he's 38.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, like,
he looks so much better than he did last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, outside of those obvious 4, Zach would probably be the guy that I would mention, and maybe a shout out to Hudson Fashing too, who's done a really great job as a call up, and maybe has earned himself a spot on the 23-man roster once the injuries kind of get sorted.
With Parise too, I mean, Ethan knows this. After every practice, every game, Parise sits at his locker and talks to everyone that wants to ask him a question. And he's a leader. I mean, again, Matt Martin early in the year, I asked him about the leadership, and he goes, everyone in the room could speak their mind. They're all leaders, but Parise really, I think, he doesn't take a practice off. He goes hard every practice. This guy is a true professional, and I think, for us in the room, when we want to talk to players after games, obviously sometimes the room's empty after losses, but Parise is always there, and I think that's important.
Yeah, even when he wasn't scoring the goals last season, we were always singing his praises just for the effort that he put out on the ice. The nice thing is this year he's being rewarded. And so I'm glad you brought him up, Ethan. And maybe now you can just touch on some guys that maybe aren't pulling their weight as much as they should be this year.
Yeah. I think you would probably go to some of the other wingers who haven't scored quite as much as maybe you would have wanted, right? Mm-hmm. So, maybe that's a Josh Bailey or an Anthony Beauvillier a little bit, where, not that they've, necessarily been awful or anything like that. I don't want to have that come off as like I'm ripping anybody.
Right.
But, I think both of those guys probably would tell you that maybe they haven't scored quite as much as they would want. And, when we talk about that position as a whole for the Islanders and something that they would want to address at the trade deadline, that does go a little bit to the performance of some of the guys who were there. And, if Beauvillier was scoring at a 25 goal rate or Bailey was scoring at a 25 goal rate, then maybe you wouldn't necessarily feel that urgency to do it. And obviously it doesn't help that the Palmieri's out or that Wahlstrom's been out for a little bit here. But I think that position in general, probably they just need a little bit more from.
And I know, Sean, we were talking before the show, and Ethan could probably give more information here too, is that for Dobson's season, it's kind of like a double-edged sword there. The offense has been there, 10 goals. He's second in the NHL amongst defensemen behind Carlson. but the defense hasn't been there. And when me and Ethan spoke to Lou over the summer when they announced the extension for him, Lou said he has to see more defensively, and I don't think we've seen that. I think especially when Pellick's been out, you look at a guy like a Dobson just to step up a little bit defensively, and we haven't really seen that. I mean, I think that goal, the Kailer Yamamoto goal the other day, where Dobson's sliding. I mean, there's no reason. There's no reason to slide there, and I think that's one. Obviously, that's one play, a situation.
Sure, you give a pass on that, yeah.
But I mean, as someone who's quarterbacking a power play too, that's really struggled. Maybe too patient at the blue line. There's things that Dobson can do a lot better defensively.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And Ethan, you alluded to this earlier in the interview, and I think this is what we'll leave off with, is you talked about being here. You talked about earlier in the season, your expectation, right, kind of on the playoff bubble. And you were here, I think, the end of October, and you basically said, I don't think you expected them to make the playoffs, but they'd be in the hunt. Has that opinion changed at all? Do you feel a little more confident that they can make the playoffs, less confidence, or pretty much the same deal?
I go back and forth on whether I think they'll be in. I think I lean towards yes, because I do think they're a streaky team and they can get hot here with some games at home. And I would imagine that they'll probably look to add at the trade deadline, and that can kind of change the whole picture, right? But at the same time, like if this homestand goes poorly, I'm not really sure where that leaves them, because the position in the standings it's not a disaster by any means, but I wouldn't call it advantageous right now with Pittsburgh having games in hand. And, the rest of the Metro just kind of keeps on winning. And they have to keep pace. Every one of these games is really important, especially the games at home, especially some of the games that they've dropped against, the Arizonas and Nashvilles of the world that they should frankly be beating. So I think it'll be really close either way. Right now, I probably lean towards the playoffs.
Towards in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have changed a little bit.
But look, if you ask me in a week, I might,
Sure.
Like I said, I've gone back and forth a lot.
Well, I think you said it. I mean, this January kind of homestand, I mean, they're playing 8 out of the next 11 here to close out January. So this might be a very critical month for them where, look, they've had their struggles. You can make the excuse that they've dropped some of these points on the road, right? But now they're going to be home. And yes, there's still some injuries, but this is where they really got to kind of start hitting the ground here, collecting points, and set themselves up for like what people kind of consider the true second half of the season, right? The All-Star game and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. To me, they can't play themselves into the playoffs in these next 11 or so games, but they can certainly play themselves out of the playoffs. So we'll see what happens.
Ethan, no question about it. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to next time, man.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much, guys.
You got it. All right, big thanks to Ethan Sears of the New York Post for joining us. Fantastic spot from him. So let's piggyback off of that a little bit, Stefen. We talked about a couple of guys he was singing praises for how they performed well during the season. Were there any other names that maybe you wanted to point out? Maybe some guys that deserved a little credit for the positive sides of the season so far?
You got to talk about Pajot. I mean, you talk about Parise playing both special teams. Pajot does it. He wins faceoffs. He's healthy. A couple years ago with that hand injury, you didn't know. You're not getting the goals from him. Now you're getting the goals. He's getting the points. You teeter on, okay, is Nelson the X factor for this team, or is Pajot? Because early in the year, you go, okay, it's definitely Pajot. I know. I think last time I was on the show, I just read an article about it.
Yeah.
How he's doing it all. And then Nelson really, the assists, he racked up the assists. Nelson's going to hit career high in assists. The goals aren't going to be as much as last year, but he's playing a two-way game there as well. But Pajot, he's out for mostly every defensive face-off, and he's been just as critical as anyone on this team.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Pajot's been huge. He's kind of made up for how awful Barzal's been on the face-off circle, right?
What are we at, 35%?
That's got to change. If he's going to keep playing center, that's got to change.
That's the thing. If you go out at the deadline, and I know the Islanders reached out to Vancouver about Bo Horvat, which I'm assuming every other team in the league has done.
Yeah, if you're doing your due diligence.
You watch the game that Bo Horvat had against the Islanders. I know the Canucks lost 6-2, but that guy scores from anywhere,
he scored
everywhere.
2 that night.
2 goals, one timer from the slot, another deflection from the slot. if you get a center, everyone's complaining you don't need a center. You get a center that wins faceoffs like that does everything Pajot does. I mean, you move those out of the wing.
As far as we know, the Isles were pretty damn close to getting Kadri, right? They were at least talking to him.
Oh, it was.
So they were obviously preparing for that sort of situation. So that doesn't change. If they go and get Bo Horvat, they're going to figure out a way to make changes. And we've seen it now with how they've swapped some things out, bringing Ratu up, moving Cizikas around. I don't know what the perfect formula is going to be, but I am sure that if they were to pick up a guy like Bo Horvat, they would figure out a way to work him into the lineup and make it work. He would help the team.
You're seeing Cizikas right now play center on that line and Barzal to the wing. And you saw it, you saw times during the year where in the third period, Lambert would put Nelson at center, Barzal on the wing when they needed a goal. Now, Barzal not being a center, that takes a bit of, the pressure off him defensively. Maybe he's farther out towards the neutral zone rather than all the way deep in the Islander zone, which, again, transitioning. You got Barzal spring him off for an odd man rush, whatever the case may be. He'll shoot the puck. I don't know. But, I don't think getting a center, you just got to get quality players here that could finish. It doesn't matter what position they play.
Just like the draft, best player available. And then you make it work.
And you look at Ratu, I know we'll get to Ratu in a little bit, and fans want to see Ratu play with Barzal. And the same way they wanted to see Wallstrom play with Barzal last year. And then, at Trotz's line, he said, you guys are like McDonald's. You want everything right now, right away. And he was right.
Isn't that Burger King? Your way, right away, Burger King now?
All I know is fast food.
This
not
is important
fast
stuff.
Wendy's is the go-to place. The 4 for $4. You can't really beat that.
All right, fair enough. They're pretty good on the burgers.
Ratu, what he's shown on obviously he's not a fourth line player. He's a top 6 talent. I think it's worked out on the fourth line because it makes him just play a simple north-south game. We saw Trotz do it last year. We see Lambert do it. When players are struggling, you move him on the fourth line for a little bit because it's just a simple game.
Yeah.
And I think Ratu's shown well. He's played limited minutes. I don't think he's ready to play with a guy like Barzal. I think he's again, what is he, 19, 20? He needs more time. First year in the AHL. He'll get there. But again, bringing in a guy, you just need talent around Barzal, whether it's a Timo Meyer, you could get him. I mean, it's just talent.
Just get everyone. Get Meyer, get Horvat. Bring them all in.
Money's just money, right?
Yeah, why not? Well, listen, I want to thank everybody once again for tuning into twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and, of course, your favorite podcast providers. We're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk a little All-Star game, and we're going to get those clowns over at Rangers Ed involved. So get ready, boys. So you're going to be ready this time, right?
We're born ready, Sean.
Right, that's what I like to hear. So, folks, thanks a lot for tuning in. We're going to take that quick break. We'll be right back.
New York Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Hey there, welcome back. We missed you too.
Love you,
now
Jay.
Pick up your feet and settle back in to Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. Welcome back to the program. You are tuning into twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. And, of course, on your favorite podcast providers later on, we are back, and we're going to talk a little All-Star game because one, Brock Nelson got elected to the All-Star game. So, yeah, I think so. I think there's a couple of guys on the Islanders that were probably deserving. And also a goaltender over on the New York Rangers that made it, Igor Shesterkin. He got in.
That's how you pronounce it.
Not sure if he deserved to get it over Ilya Sorokin, but I mean, there will be a fan vote, so they'll have their say. But why don't we talk about that, Stefan? We'll start with you. How do you feel about the Brock Nelson nomination?
I think it's perfect. I mean, this is a guy that's never made the All-Star game. You probably go around the league, and if you're not an Islanders fan, you have no idea who he is. And we see that with a lot of Islanders, but
sure,
he's real. I mean, this is 2 years in a row where he's really been in your X factor. And I think you made it too with the fan vote. I think that's the biggest thing is, if you did a fan vote, let's say you brought Barzal or Sorokin, Nelson would not have gotten a vote to get in. You, with Nelson getting it, Barzal and Sorokin are going to get votes. And I think it wouldn't have been the other way around. Plus, Barzal's been there twice. Sorokin, if he doesn't do it this year, He'll be an All-Star eventually. And I mean, the Islanders don't want goalies in the All-Star game. The last thing the Islanders need is to see Sorokin go down.
We have a little experience from that. Yeah. I mean, we go back a long time, but a certain someone had a little bit of a hip problem when he was at the All-Star game. And that was at the skills competition, right?
Yeah, it wasn't.
And he was hot mic'd, and I think you could hear him say he popped his hip.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
They don't call him, I mean, they call him Humpty for a reason, right? So.
Hey, I'll give the guy credit, man.
Oh, he's great.
Even though he couldn't get out of his own way sometimes with those injuries, like he fully owned it. Right, calling himself Humpty Dumpty and all that. I mean, I give him credit, but I mean, it's a shame because he could have had something of a career if he didn't get out of his own way.
There's a reason he got that contract. He was looking to be the next Berdor. And again, injuries it's very tough. Obviously, fighting Brent Johnson, but the smartest thing.
But the main point is, we don't want Ilya Sorokin getting hurt at the All-Star game if he goes.
But what I will say, and I mean, this is not up for debate.
And he looks left to the couch. Again, I love it.
Shesterkin and Sorokin, when I look at both these guys as a goalie too, it's just incredible to watch these two guys work. The biggest thing that stands out to me is
they're both good.
But their anticipation is on another planet. We're able to read situations. It's you have amazing goalies in this league, and then you have goalies that are just, when they're on, it's absurd to watch. It's beautiful, quite frankly. Now you look at Sorokin statistically. Mm-hmm. Best goalie in the Metro, just by stats, but when Shesterkin's on his game too, you can't beat him.
So, Stefen, let's get your opinion just on the format of the All-Star game real quick, and then we'll toss it over to Ed and Mikey over there in the couch. I want to get your opinion also on the All-Star game, and maybe you can just talk a little bit about, what's his name? Old Igor over there. And maybe if anybody was snubbed on the Rangers, maybe somebody else you felt was more deserving or should also make it. But, Stefen, we'll start with you there.
Well, I mean, you look around the league, and I think the biggest standout to me is Bo Horvat didn't get in. And Elias Pettersson did. And again, could it be that the NHL went to teams and said, listen, pick a guy that won't get the votes? Because, again, Bo Horvat, if he's not
who you're willing to send.
Yeah, because if Bo Horvat's not in this All-Star game with what he's done this year, that's crazy. And the fan vote's cool, but then you could get situations like a John. Again, I think the players that have been the best in the league deserve to be there. John Scott being in the All-Star
I'm not even sure. Like, I know I'm getting tinfoil hat here a little bit, but I'm not even sure they honor the fan votes anymore because of that situation. You know what I mean? Like, maybe to a point.
But they'll vote in another 12 players, 10 skaters, and 2 goalies via fan vote. And again, it's an All-Star game. They need to do stuff for the fans. Do they actually count all the hashtag players? No. Unless they're paying someone to sit there and do that.
They might be.
That. Yeah, Bettman's the one doing the counting. And no, I mean, again, you have to cater to the fans. That's the whole point of the All-Star game. But there's certain guys that, there's no question Bo Horvat should have. I mean, you have to take the best players in the league. It's the whole point of the All-Star game.
Like Ilya Sorokin.
Quite frankly, All-Star games to me, halfway through the season, don't make sense to me at all.
Yeah.
I think in every sport, they're All-Stars for half the year. We've seen how things, like the Islanders last year, how many people had such bad starts, such great finishes. Again, you're not going to do an All-Star game at the end of the year, same way with football. The best players aren't going to play in it because they don't want to get hurt. But to me, being an All-Star halfway through the year, that doesn't mean much. If you do it for a full season, you're an All-Star. So I don't love that idea. I'm not a huge fan of All-Star games in general, especially when guys like Ovechkin don't go. I think he's going this year, but every year he doesn't go, he gets suspended a game. He
doesn't care.
He doesn't care. I mean, would you care?
No,
exactly. So I mean, they want the break. They want the break off, and I think again, All-Stars are a bit overrated. You don't want to see players get hurt too. But again, you got to cater to the fans, and I get why they do so much with the fan voting now. And we'll see who gets in, but you're going to get situations like a John Scott, like Shane Wright can make the All-Star game hypothetically.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean,
why not? Ross Johnson can make it. But let's pitch it over to the couch. Ed, Mike, let's get you involved here. What do you think about Shesterkin's nomination into the All-Star game? And just, I think you guys also have some strong opinions about the format as well.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start off with Shesterkin. I think actually last year, Shesterkin kind of got snubbed, not getting into 100%. the game, which is actually an interesting point you bring up. Is that maybe they go to the teams and ask, like, do you want to send so-and-so to the game? And last year, maybe they didn't want to ruin Shesterkin's flow. I mean, I think that's a big thing. This year, Shesterkin had a slow start. He's starting to come around right now. So now that you guys are talking about it, I'm a little nervous that it might ruin his flow a little bit.
I mean, I don't want him to get hurt, but I love that you got some nerves about it.
I'm not even talking about getting hurt. I mean, going into bad habits, like just playing in a type of game like that where the team isn't or the teams aren't playing at full speed. Like that might put the goalies in bad habits and the shootout and stuff. And it's a different case. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I'm not a fan of the All-Star game right now. I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like it used to mean something back then. Now it's like all fan base and stuff like that. So it's like, do you really want to be a part of the
Yeah.
game? Like
the biggest thing too is it's the fans. You know, Toronto fan base is huge. They're gonna win votes just because of their size. Like the Islander fans, they're a great bunch of people, but they're small compared to other groups where they can vote someone in, but they're not that player.
So
whoever it is.
I'll start by saying I don't give a crap about the All-Star game. You know, like, look, it's fanfare. Like, that's fine. Like, everybody have fun. I hope that it comes to Belmont. Like, let's get it at UBS because the Islanders haven't hosted a goddamn thing in decades. So that'll be fun. I'd love to see, you know, all the media coming in and, you know, getting you know, all the stars of the league. That would be fantastic. I would be there, first in line. But just generally speaking, I don't give a shit about the All-Star game. And just like the format of it is kind of silly because is it really an all-star game where you can pick and choose which guys go? It's not really stats-based. It's really not. I mean, we just pointed out some prime examples here. Like, and this is, you can call this homerism and bias, but just looking straight at the numbers, Ilya Sorokin obviously should have been a choice here for a goaltender, right?
He's the best Metro goalie statistically.
I mean, he is
last year too.
He is currently the most valuable player on the New York Islanders.
By far.
You can make a case for Nelson, you can make a case for Barzal, but he's absolutely the most valuable player on the team. And he'll probably get voted in or put on the team. They do some after the vote, they add a guy or two here and there too, so they might do that.
Goalies are weird.
Leave.
The goalie situation's weird too.
But like you talk about Bo Horvat not getting in, right? And I'm sure there's, you know, if you went down the league, I'm not keeping tabs on all these guys, but I'm sure if you go into other divisions and you look at some of the stats out there and the way some of these guys have been playing, they probably got snubbed, if you want to call it that. And it's just not true to form. Look, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. It's some fun. Like I actually enjoy the skills competition more than the game itself. Yeah. I mean, a 3-on-3 tournament, cool, fun, whatever. They're not, you know, they're scoring 11 goals, you know, in each game, and it is what it is. I don't know I'm not here to tell you how to fix it. I don't know what the answer is. So I guess they're doing something. They're doing their best. That's fine. But I just, I'm not that interested in it. I'm maybe a little less interested in the Winter Classic than I am the All-Star game.
This Winter Classic, I feel like they didn't advertise it at all. One, it wasn't on the first, because they don't want to compete with football. But two, like, did you have any idea?
Bada and I talked about it last week. I thought it was on the first and ended up being on the second. I thought it was on the wrong day.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't have to get into this again at all, but like we talked about how they keep recycling the same teams. These gentlemen over here are lucky enough that their team is one of those teams.
Undefeated.
Oh, good for you, bud.
Yeah.
So how many have you been in so far? 8?
Well, 2 official ones and then the 2 stadium series at Yankee Stadium.
Right.
But those were the same weekend, so that they just played the Islanders.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really count.
That's as far as the Devils and Islanders are going to get.
I mean, the Rangers have had good games too, and outdoor games.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, that's what you want if they're going to host.
That
the
Philly
same
game
teams,
was good.
I was going to say the Philly.
Yeah,
game.
that was a good game.
When you see the same teams, you just hope it's good games.
Well, I heard Bergeron was in his 8th. I think they said that was his 8th one. Like that's a lot. The Bruins get featured quite a bit. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. But just back to the All-Star game. Look, I know that they're working with different numbers here because it's 3-on-3. But if there was any other Ranger or 2 that you'd say deserves a shot in there, who is it?
Definitely Mika. The way Mika's been playing all year,
okay.
I don't think Zibanejad definitely deserves a spot on that team for sure.
Okay.
And I'll go with Adam Fox without a doubt. He's another guy. He kind of had a slow start along with the rest of the Rangers, but he's right back up there in the Norris conversation lately. I don't know the exact stats, but he's putting up at least a point per game. I want to say the last 15, 20 games. So he's just lights out. Just seeing that guy play live. If they're worried about the fans and they want to put the best guys or the most skilled guys in the All-Star game, the skills competition, you got to put a guy like Adam Fox in there. Things he does with the puck, it's just it's crazy.
And I think too they should do good story. Get people in there that maybe, going to the year were maybe not going to be in the league, and then they somehow to
Jimmy
me,
Vesey.
I was just going to say,
wow, Jimmy Vesey. Yeah, what a resurgence for that guy.
No, but I was just going to say that I'm thinking of a guy like Jimmy Vesey. This guy, drafted by the Rangers. Excuse me, he signed, right?
Well, he was one of those guys that the Rangers always get with the free agents,
That's
the college
right.
boys.
The Hobie Baker winners.
Yeah, the Hobie Baker winners that they turn down the Flames or whoever decides to draft them. Yeah, it was one of those.
It doesn't work out for
Nice
him.
Harvard boy.
Yeah, he bounces around. And now he comes back to the Rangers, has a great year, gets an extension. I mean, it's cool to have storyline guys get in that you maybe didn't see. Yeah. That'd be cool.
It's fun. It's the league's got to do it. Whatever it is. The guys get the players get a little bit of a break, right? They usually get a couple of days off in and around it. That's kind of like a mandated thing now with the CBA and the NHLPA. So who knows? Maybe that's if the Islanders are still in it. Maybe that's a break that they'll be able to use.
When they did the draft, when they made the players pick, and Phil Kessel got picked last.
That was cool.
Well,
that was fun.
Phil, I mean,
like we all wanted to see what was going to happen there, right? Like we all probably tuned into that. Like that was cool.
The draft was a cool idea. I mean, I don't know why they got rid of that. I mean, maybe the players didn't like it. Or
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
there was
maybe
a lot of, like dead time involved, So
yeah, it was a little odd, but it was
the
different.
Players were just in the back getting drunk. So by the end of it, they were
that's right.
Players getting drunk. Kessel eating
But see,
hot
that's
dogs,
more
yeah.
entertaining than anything else, right? I mean, I don't know. Whatever. It's never going to be perfect and never going to make everybody happy. But there you go. Brock Nelson is going to be an all-star. Good for him. He's definitely earned it. And maybe we'll see Sorokin and perhaps Matt Barzal. I don't know if the Islanders are going to get 3 guys, but I also think it's
send Barzal if he's banged up.
I also think it's silly that they send like 7 guys from the team that's hosting it. Like they always do that. Like they flood the team with I mean, okay, maybe an extra guy or 2, but like probably the 3rd or 4th guy they're throwing in there doesn't deserve it over a couple of guys in the division.
And Florida
you know what I mean?
hasn't been a great team this year.
No,
They're
they
teetering.
haven't.
I mean, this is a team where you.
Well, look, they probably had much higher expectations for Florida. They'd be like, oh, okay, no problem. They get Bobrovsky in there. They get Sasha in there. Like all those guys. Yeah, but didn't work out. But that's our spiel on the All-Star game, fellas. Thanks for joining in there.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe there'll be a question for you later, and maybe not. But either way,
bring them on. Bring them on.
All right, so let's move on to the next segment. Ed, why don't you cue us in to What's on Tap?
What's on tap?
I love that.
We don't have a button anymore.
I know we will, but I like that improv intro.
That was beautiful.
That's very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
So we're going into the start of what will be a 5-game homestand for the New York Islanders. As we said before, they're going to play 8 out of their next 11 at home, which is huge for them, and that's going to start on Tuesday versus Dallas. Then Thursday, the Minnesota Wild come to town, and then on Saturday, the Montreal Canadiens will be playing at UBS Arena. So you look at those 3 teams, Stefan. What do you see?
Oh, again, what do I see? I see points that they got to get.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Things change, obviously, in a season, and you look at one game at a time. But after this disastrous road trip, you got to steal a game. And Dallas is a team that could light the lamp. We saw they played them.
So can Minnesota.
Yeah. If you lose to Montreal, that's like losing to an Arizona.
Just
that can't
close
happen.
it up.
It's one of those things that it can happen. But again, the playing at home is, I think Ethan had it in his article, or Andrew Gross might have had it in his article about talking to players, and they're excited to get home. Especially after a bad road trip, you want to be in front of your fans. The Islanders are 7-0-0 when scoring first on home ice.
They should try to score first.
I think that you score more goals than the opponent, it usually works out. And I think the biggest thing is going to be you can't get off to the slow starts at home. It just can't happen. You have to come out in front of your fan base who are going to be excited to have you back. It was like 8 months since they've been home.
Yeah.
And again,
I miss them.
You gotta score first. You just got to play your brand of hockey. Again, we talked about it. The Islanders these teams are fast. I mean, Minnesota, you have Kaprizov fast. Montreal, as much as they struggle, fast. Dallas have guys that can absolutely fly. The only way the Islanders can slow these teams down is by forechecking early. It limits every other team's transition game, lets them play their game. Once they don't do that early, the other team's flying, they're done. They're done because they're not a fast team, and that's what Lane said all the time. We got to get to the forecheck. We got to get to the forecheck.
Right.
If they don't, all these teams, wherever they are in the standings, you give them the opportunity to move and get the puck out and transition, you're going to have a really hard time.
It'll also be helpful if these teams start their starting goalies, their number 1 goalies, because if they play the backups, it's going to be an issue.
Again, just whoever the Islanders are going to face, they just have to get shots early. Again, like I said before, as a goalie, is one thing is whenever I'm struggling, I want to face a lot of shots early, but you don't want to face a lot of high danger shots early. Yes, it could boost your confidence to make those saves, but if you allow a couple of goals early, your confidence is gone. Now, the outside shots, goalies get into rhythms. We see that happen again, back to Lankinen thing. Lankinen's not a strong goalie.
Right.
He faced a lot of shots earlier that weren't high danger, got into a rhythm, and then once a goalie's in a rhythm, these guys are NHL level guys. They're just going to find a way to stay compact mentally and shut you down. And I think the Islanders just have to find a way to crashing the net's the biggest thing. These goalies are too good. You take away their eyes, you have a high chance. That's how you have to score in this league. And the Islanders don't do that enough. And again, got to do that early. You can't wait to the third period to do that.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, if they come out slow-footed against Dallas on Tuesday, I just don't. Like, they have to know that they have to come out guns blazing.
But you would think that after
of course.
One game after another, that would have changed. The thing is, when Ethan brought it up earlier, is that them saying, I don't know what the issue is, maybe it's cliche. They bring up, there's multiple reasons for why things are going wrong. But at some point, the team, the leadership, all those guys, Lambert, I don't know who has to say something, but it's got to stop. Because, especially, let's say the Islanders do make the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
you come out slow in the playoffs, you're in big trouble because, in the playoffs, everyone tightens up defensively.
Yeah.
If you don't and you allow a couple of goals early in the playoffs,
yeah,
there is a very low chance that you're coming back in those games.
Well, hopefully that's a conversation we'll be having when we get to April. But right now they have a lot of work to do with half of the season to go. But that's what's on tap, folks. Couple of tough opponents in Dallas and Minnesota. A game that they should win against Montreal if they're doing the right thing. So we'll see what happens. But all big points now because it was emphasized by yourself and by Ethan earlier. I mean, it's so tight in the Metro, let alone the Eastern Conference. Hey, don't sleep on Buffalo.
You cannot. Tage Thompson, by the way, did the MVP chance the other day.
Oh, my God. He's been out of this world, and they have like 4 games in hand on the Islanders. And let's just say they won those out, they'd be up like 2 or 4 points
back right now.
Yeah, they're right there.
This is the
Can't
first
count
time
Buffalo
I remember
out
in my lifetime that they've started, because again, Buffalo did their usual thing this year.
Right,
started
really
hot, strong, and they're
right.
not keeping it up. They didn't. They fell
And
off.
now,
They lose like 8 or 10 in a row.
Tage Thompson has taken that team on his back, and Rasmus Dahlin. He's been playing great.
You also have
too.
to credit Kyle Oposo.
Sure.
Wearing the C for the
Captain
first time
Kyle.
in his career.
Yeah.
After the injuries that he had, he stepped up last year. He played the party, had a hat trick the other day. I mean, again, leadership for that team is so critical because yes, you had Eichel there, but you didn't have a leadership group. And Anderson in goal too. I mean, leader.
As long as the Islanders work their way further up the standings, like I'm totally cool with Buffalo taking the Rangers spot in the playoffs. That would be great. That would be fine.
Yeah, let's ask the guys on the couch.
That's fine. I'd be rooting for them for that, but that's about it.
I don't know about that.
But Tage Thompson, I mean, if Buffalo makes it, the heart. I mean, if you got to go to Tage.
He's in the conversation.
And Tage Thompson obviously is the son of Islanders
Brent Thompson,
Brent Thompson, so he could develop him.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So that'll do it for What's on Tap. Edzo, why don't we move right on to Hero of the Week. There you are, right on cue, bud. So when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels Half-Price Hero, which this week is the Poke Check, featuring roast beef, turkey, ham, Swiss and American lettuce and tomato, and mayo on a Hero. Stop in to the Blue Line Deli and Bagels flagship location in Huntington, mention Hockey Night New York, and get half off the Poke Check. So I'm going to start here with my hero choice, and I was going to go one way, then I decided to go another.
A little pivot.
Yeah, a little pivot, if you will.
And
I pivoted to Atu Ratu. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but the guy got 6 minutes and 15 seconds against the Canucks, and he managed to score a goal. And that's kind of what his game's been. You talked about him earlier in the show, and obviously they're shielding him a lot here, coming up from Bridgeport, not giving him a lot of ice time. But what he's done with that ice time has been pretty impressive. And he's shown that he can be a goal scorer in the NHL. He's only got 2. Don't want to get ahead of myself here.
2 in like 18 minutes. Yeah, it's like 4
right, 2 goals. Like his goals per 60 must be outstanding.
It's got to be top in the league.
Right.
Yeah.
But look, he's looked good. I don't think we're ready to see him full time yet. It's nice that he's showing some flashes that I think Islander fans were crossing their fingers for. Filling in for some injured guys. He's looked good. Look, they dropped 2 out of 3 games here. Not a lot of guys to choose from. Pajot had a pretty good game against Vancouver. That's the initial guy I was going to go with. But look, I think that he's looked good. He's saying all the right things. He's just happy to be there. He's not upset about the lack of ice time. He's enjoying the experience, and he's a guy who may end up being a real gem for a farm team farm club that, let's face it, we thought was going to be pretty barren. So that he might help them out, if they don't trade him away for Bo Horvat.
I mean, Bridgeport right now has lost 10 straight. They're struggling, but again, they've lost players to injuries too. But with Ratu too, is not just the offense. I mean, the biggest thing for me is how responsible he is defensively. Like Holmstrom when he came up, these guys are coming up wise beyond their years defensively, and I think that's talking to Martin and Parise. That's the hardest thing to do as a forward coming into the league is playing the defensive game, and those guys already have that advantage. So Ratu, great option. Again, the goal that he scored, it could have been a tap in backdoor pass, but he showed patience.
They were both snipes. Yeah, they were both nice goals.
It's the fact that he read the situation, knowing Martin it was against Vancouver, right?
Vancouver was the most recent goal.
So he knew Martin was going to slide over the goalie, Spencer Martin.
And Johnston gave him a nice pass.
That's a great play all around.
Sure.
But it's just, again, Ratu understanding, okay, the goalie's... I mean, another rookie might just shoot that right at Martin, who's sliding.
Right, yeah, right away. Like, all right, let me get this off my stick.
Sees
yeah.
Blocker side's available and shoots it. It's just smart. Very smart, yeah.
Patient, yeah, for sure. So that's my hero, Atu Ratu. Now, Stefan, who is your hero?
So I didn't pick a player.
Is that right?
I picked a day of the week.
Is that right?
Yeah, Saturday.
Really?
You know why?
Tell us.
Because I'm at the end of the road trip. Because the first couple of days of that trip were tough. So Saturday is your Islanders Hero of the Week on my end, just because, again, they needed to come home. They needed to mentally get out of Canada.
Yeah.
And
quickly
get healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, they have been off for 2 days. They're skating Monday morning, which obviously they'll do that. They'll play but I mean, Saturday's the winner for me. Yeah.
I think that's a great choice. I think Saturday is proud. I think they're happy to get the award here. I mean, fresh start for Saturday in 2023, huh? Hero of the week from Stefen Rosner. Good stuff. So there you go, folks.
Atu Ratu for that one. Yeah.
Atu Ratu and Sabado, otherwise known as Saturday. Get your nominations for Hero of the Week. We'll see who the official is tomorrow morning when we push it. But remember, folks, stop in to Blue Line Deli and Bagels flagship location in Huntington, 719 West Jericho Turnpike. Mention Hockey Night in New York. Get half off the poke check. Now, Eddie, let's go to Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company.
All right, folks, it's time for Questions Brewing, brought to you by Lost Farmer Brewing Company. Eddie, how you guys doing back there? How's Jay? How's Jay doing?
Quiet as usual.
Yeah, he likes to. He doesn't like the spotlight.
I caught a glimpse of Jay earlier.
Is that right?
I changed the camera when he was over.
We're gonna have to edit that out.
That.
Oh, good. I'm
He
glad
said you did that on purpose.
I might have, but he's smiling. He looks happy to be here.
Reminds me of Kramer from Seinfeld. I could just see the motions and stuff. I think he's going to fall off the chair.
I love that. I don't know how he feels about it, but I love it.
I'm on a Seinfeld binge right now. I never watched the show, and I'm just
right. That came out like 50 years before you were born, right?
A Kramer comparison is probably.
I'm impressed that you even know who Kramer is and what Seinfeld is. Honestly,
I am 6. So.
You look it. All right, Eddie, what do you got here? Questions brewing.
Well, I have a question for you. Is that a new figure behind your right shoulder?
Oh my God, yes it is. You talking about this little Funko Pop guy right there?
Who's that guy?
That's made by a friend of ours. His name is Matty O, and he runs a nice little shop here. He's like the 40-year-old virgin. He likes to custom paint, figurines and whatnot. And he does the Todd McFarlane's. He does the Funko Pops here. So here, check this guy out. Pretty handsome. I think he modeled him after a very certain someone, but he's got the Hockey Night in New York logo.
The same head as you.
He's got the same head. Yes, it's gigantic. Good call there. See, Stefen's got some quips too. I love it. So, I want to talk a little bit about that. I mean, he looks good back there, right?
Yeah. I mean, it caught my eye all night.
Yeah, so
I was like, who is that guy?
So if you're interested, you can get your own Funkos done. Check out Custom Hockey Sticks on Etsy. That's where the shop is. And then check out Custom Sports Funkos on Instagram. You can hit them up over there. I'll give you a quote, but he obviously, as you can see, they do a great job over there with these custom Funkos, and you can get a giant head like me, over at the shop. So yeah, check it out. Nice little addition to the backsplash there.
Yeah.
So Ed, great question. Let's get into the chat. How are we doing in the chat today?
We're doing great. We're gonna kick it off for our Rangers guest here, Rangers podcast.
Damn it! I was hoping you ignored them. All right, fair enough.
No.
What do you got?
This is a fair question. It's T-Boyle13 says, are the Rangers looking to acquire a backup before the deadline?
A backup goalie, I'm assuming that means?
Potentially. I mean, I wouldn't know.
A backup designated hitter.
I would say backup.
Do you guys need someone?
If I got this question about a month ago, I would say yes. But as of late, I think Halak has definitely stepped it up. I think he's on a 3 or 4 game win streak at this point. And I think he's all of his stats are even much lower than they were at the beginning of the year. So to me, I think they're all set. I mean, I think they have other areas to focus on.
Okay, there you go.
I would say, when you have a guy like Shesterkin.
Stefan, they didn't ask you.
Okay, that's fair. Carry on. Next question. Yeah.
This one you can answer. Mike4652 says, will the Isles let Ratu go over his 10-game limit to burn a year
there we go,
ELC?
Say perfect question.
Put up on a T for you.
I told you.
Did you pay that guy to ask that question?
I was thinking about
I didn't. Mike just knows, man.
So they should not, and I'll explain quickly why. He's on his ELC, but it hasn't kicked in yet. So he signed it in the summer of 2021, and because he didn't play that season upcoming, it's called an ELC slide, which means if you don't play 10 games that year,
correct,
your ELC doesn't start yet. Now he's playing this year. But if he doesn't play the 10 games, which again, we just agreed that he's maybe not NHL ready to play every day. When injured players come back, they're not going to need him. He should play every big top 6 minutes in the minors.
Yeah, if he's going to keep playing 6 to 8 minutes, why even burn the year to begin with?
If they were going to use him, and we'll see if Barzal is healthy and how that might impact their decision.
Could, yeah, good point.
But rather him go down. You have a guy like Otto Kavula who's playing pretty well down there right now. If you need a fourth-line center fill-in, you can go to him. And if he doesn't play the 10 games this year, that moves that again, another ELC slide. This will be the last year of that. But that means you have Ratu 5 years control on his entry-level contract, especially when you have a veteran team with every centerman besides Barzal is over 30. That's going to pay off. We saw it with Dobson. Lamoriello did the same thing with Dobson. Dobson didn't play after being drafted. He went back to juniors, which, again, an entry-level contract slide. Then he played the next year when you could question, was he ready to do that? He could have gone to the AHL and played. He didn't. But that's just controlling these guys of players. I mean, you could essentially, with all the RFA signings, you could have Dobson now under a team-friendly contract for 10 years before he becomes a UFA. I mean, that's critical, and that's where Lou's really, been strong is player retention. We see with Pelech, with Pulak, all these guys where he holds Barzal even with the bridge deals before this big contract is you're holding these guys under retention where they're not UFAs yet, and that's critical in the salary cap world.
Yeah, no question about it. Nice job, Steph.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We got a very interesting question here.
Love those.
Love this one. MJ Beckman. By percentage, how do we divide the share of all the blame among the following? Lou, Lane, players, and ownership.
Stefan, did you bring your calculator?
I'm not good at math, Sean. Most of the
5.
blame,
The answer is 5.
Most of the blame has to be on Lou because he's the one making the decisions with the roster. I think that's fair to say.
Okay, yeah.
Again,
starts at the top, as they say.
It starts at the top.
Okay.
He banked on this team bouncing back, and there's a couple of guys that have. I mean, look at Parise.
Yeah.
Bounce back.
Pajot.
Barzal's picked it up.
Palmieri before he got hurt.
Palmieri, yep. You have guys doing that. You have a couple guys that haven't, where that's where Lou looks bad.
Right.
But this team has, since the John Tavares days, this team has not had a talented winger for their superstar or star, however you want to classify Barzal.
Stefan, I know you weren't around, but that's since the Alexei Yashin days. They haven't had a top flight winger. Maybe you could say Miro Shatan for like 5 minutes, but outside of him, this has been like a storyline for decades.
It's a broken record.
Yeah.
And I think this year especially, if they're going to be close to the playoffs, there's no question you have to try. I'm not saying they're going to get a guy. It's a two-way street with trades.
Right.
The Islanders don't have a ridiculous farm system or, the prospects that other teams have to get top quality players, and that's going to hurt them. But it starts at the top. Again, Lambert is really doing what he can. You know, the fact that Ross Johnson, great guy, he has his roles, but there are games where, you shouldn't have to, there should be more there than just having to put Ross Johnson, because every time Johnston plays, it's been a habit, he's taken out of the rotation before the third period starts.
Yeah.
He's shorting the bench. Yeah. And again, that's not, Lane's doing what he can, but that's because of Lou not giving him enough players. And then it comes down to players. Yes, the leadership, you need players to come through in big moments, but I think it starts with Lou. And again, did he have a gripe to bounce back with this team? Yeah, last year, the COVID-riddled season, it's not fair to judge this team. And again, how much can you judge this first half with how many injuries they've been dealt? Yes, the call-ups have been great. It's not as crazy as it was last year, but you lost key players, and there's no statistical thing to look at. You can have games lost for injuries, sure, but Pelech's not the same as losing a fourth-line grinder. You can't compare them.
Right.
So I think, there's blame to go around, but it does start at the top.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know how to throw numbers and percentages to these guys or whatnot, but yeah, I think Lou definitely has to accept his share of the blame because, I think pretty much, whether it's everybody in Islander country or everybody around the league, if they were looking at this team, it was like, okay, they need scoring, they need a winger, and funny enough, they have scored more, but they're still finding ways to lose.
But their defense has masked a lot of the forward struggles. The
Sure.
defense has the most amount of goals.
Right.
And again, that's key. You need look at the Lightning are the perfect example, especially when the Islanders played them in the playoffs.
Right.
How many times did Hedman and Sergachev have burned the Islanders? That's
right.
You see those really good teams get scoring from their defense, and the Islanders needed that, but they need other forwards to pull their weight.
No, they do, and hopefully that's, look, we have to see where they are as the deadline approaches. If they're in the mix, if it looks like it's worth it, then yeah, pull the trigger. Add a guy to this mix if you can, 2 to tango, all that, and the assets. Chris and I talked about this last week, but yeah, look, at the end of the day, it does rest on the players on the ice, but there's something to be said about who's available to be put on the ice by Lou and how Lambert uses that mix and finds the right formula. So I think you can definitely spread the blame around, and I think that all parties are involved, because you have some guys that they look out to lunch some nights, and so. We talked about it. Ethan said it before. These guys are getting paid a lot of money. They're putting the effort out there. It's not that anybody's really dogging it, but sometimes maybe they're just not in the right mental space. And you have missed assignments on the back end, and again, you have some young guys there that are still coming their way. And even though we've kind of already hard stapled Romanov to the top 4 of this team, playing next to to Dobson. He's still a young guy too.
22.
Right. He's still finding his way as well. And I think ultimately he's going to be a big part of this team, and he's going to be a good top 4 defenseman. I really like what I've seen out of him, despite some of the bumps and bruises along the way. But this team still kind of needs more. They still need to bring a full effort every night. I mean, I could definitely count on half a hand how many 60-minute efforts I've seen out of this team. It hasn't been a lot. They've won.
What's a half a hand?
Yeah, 2.5. Right. So like, okay. Like right here. There you go. For those watching at home.
Yeah, we needed a number. We needed a conclusion, like a definitive percentage number.
Yeah, I mean,
something
I'm gonna say
100% blame on the Islanders. I think you could agree with that.
Yeah, I love that. 100. Stefen jumping in here. Yeah, I'm gonna. I think with all the word salad we just put into that answer is enough. So I think we can move on from there. So Ed, what do you got next?
For the gentleman on the couch, our esteemed guests.
Damn it! Why are you giving him so much attention?
This is a better one than the last.
Those
one.
ugly hats.
Very well made though.
They are nice. Did the Rangers choke versus the Devils yesterday bother you more than the choke versus the Islanders at MSG
I like this question.
earlier this season? Which felt worse? By Trottier 19.
Love that. Way to go, Trots.
I mean, right off the bat for me, I was at that Islander game, so I'm going to say it did not sting as bad because I wasn't live for it. I didn't have to take that hour-long train ride home afterwards. I was on my couch after the game ended, so it's a little different. But I'd say at this point in the season, it definitely hurts, and I was saying to you gentlemen before that I think, honestly, I hate the Devils more than I hate the Islanders right now. So
okay.
I think it did sting a little bit, especially the Jack Hughes versus Kakko rivalry going on right now. Laffy's not performing right now. So there's a lot of like outside, whatever you want to call it, influences.
Okay.
So I would say, yeah, right now I go with the Devils, but as a live experience, the Islanders was pretty bad.
Yeah, no, I got to agree. A little more recency bias. Obviously, we just lost to the Devils, and last time we played the Islanders, we won 5-3 to remind the
oh, my
listeners.
God. I don't remember that. I blacked that out.
Jed called it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
low.
So
That's really low.
All right, Ed. Next. With that beautiful hat in your head, what else
Next.
you got?
Yeah. Coach Lambert up next.
Okay.
Given the stresses of the job, can we all take a moment to appreciate Lane's game day lid before it all turns white and falls out in clumps? All he's missing is the Keenan stash circa 1994. Now, I needed help with that one.
Okay, I get the Keenan stash and all that. I guess he's just talking about how stressful his job is, kind of coaching this team and the struggles that they've had. I don't even know how to address that question.
Yeah, I wanted to throw it out there.
Is there a question? Yeah, I didn't hear, yeah.
There was. We apparently we all needed to just take a moment. Can we all take? a
just
moment
to acknowledge,
appreciate?
just to acknowledge and appreciate. Okay, yeah. Lane's trying his best.
I didn't see it personally.
He's in a tough situation. First year as a head coach on a team, that's struggling a lot more than, he's been around Trotz. He's learned from one of the best to ever do it.
Right.
This is his first time really it is his first time as an NHL head coach. And he's, he doesn't speak a lot in the media. He doesn't give us a lot of information, which obviously by design, but you could see the frustration after games. I mean, he'll talk to us and then walk out and you just could see how much it's weighing on him. Now, I haven't seen any gray hairs as much yet coming out of his head.
Not yet. And honestly, he's got like a 9 out of 10
nice flow,
too.
yeah.
I mean, the hair is fantastic. The flow is great. It's funny because you see him at practice and it's like it's just kind of floppy there, no product. But then you get to game time.
Oh, he is coming off the
and
ring.
He's got plenty of product and he looks great. He kind of looks like a Pat Riley of the 90s when he was coaching the Knicks. I don't know if you know who he was.
Back to the stash, though. I mean, he can't legally grow on under Lou. So
that's right. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
So the Keenan stash isn't happening.
They're even more strict with the Yankees.
All right. Well,
the Yankees allowed these stash.
Lou's strict.
Yeah, he runs a tight ship.
I guess they got long hair too, right? Some players, no.
I don't know. I don't watch baseball
it's like
anymore.
The Yankees. Oh, you're talking about the Yankees?
Hockey.
They can't.
Oh, no long hair. Yeah, Romanov had to cut it twice. I think. Like he cut it once, and Lou was like, "Not good enough." And
I heard a story. I'm not sure where I heard it from. It was about Sorokin, and his beard was getting a little long. He ran into Lou, and Lou's like,
"He can't grow a beard."
Did you see him in the KHL?
No, I didn't. Oh yeah.
All right, apparently he had it a little long, and Lou came up to him and said, "You're going to cut that." Now.
Okay.
And it's strict. I know a couple people that work for the Islanders where Lou's come up to him like workers and been like, "You're going to cut that, right?"
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Lou's
steering the ship.
Well, people love to play for him. So.
Sounds like our Chaminade days, Sean.
Oh God, you had to bring that up. I'm not gonna sleep tonight now. Jeez. But yes, you're right. Yes, it was basically run by the Lou Lamoriello Brotherhood over there at Chaminade. That's true. Good point. All right, Ed, you got anything else for us?
T Boyle 13 asks,
okay,
do you see Bavillier getting moved before the deadline?
That's interesting because I don't know if you want to kick it.
Tell us why, Stefan.
Oh, okay. I'll tell you why. If you don't, okay. Is his value has gone down and down and down over the last couple of years, and I think that time too. If they were going to move him, it would have been this past summer, just because cap situation. The Islanders needed to clear cap to get a guy like Kadri.
4.125. 4.125 mil.
No. Well done. Yeah.
Okay.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he struggled. So right now, yes, he has speed, which is always an asset in the NHL, especially this NHL where you need speed. And but it's gone down and down, and I think that his value, I don't think you'll get. I don't know what he's not going to be a pack. Maybe he's in a package for a certain player, but he's not moving the needle like he might have moved a couple years ago. I know after that goal against the Lightning in the playoffs, which obviously unreal goal forces Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
You could look at that summer and say that would have been the time to move him. His value is never going to be higher, but you haven't seen enough from him, and his value has gone down and down. That I don't think you're gonna have to just move him at this point for his salary.
If they do move him, it's not as a significant part of a package
it'd be a cap dump.
I mean, unless like the other team that they're dealing with, sees some promise and hope that they can, bring some of that upside back, right? But
and it's possible.
But of course, he's still a youngish dude.
25,
but I mean, but look, he's been in the league for a long time, and every time you think he's going to figure it out, he kind of falls back into this, these slumps and this inconsistency. And some nights he's the best player on the ice, and other nights you don't even know he's stressing, And that's a problem that this guy's had. And look, every team has had players like this. The Islanders have had multiple players like this over the years, and some guys it takes longer to figure out than not. But you also need to figure out, and this is part of Lou Lamoriello's job, is when you pull the plug on somebody like that guy and say, listen, we gave it our best shot. It's not working here. Maybe it's time to give him a chance somewhere else. And the only problem is that, he's going to be selling real low. It's just a move cap at this point, and that might be valuable enough.
Oh, I mean, cap space is so incredibly valuable, and I think just the time to move him would have been 2 summers ago, last summer, and it just didn't happen. So
okay, there you have it.
And I think we actually have one last one.
Let's
for
do it.
Ed and Mike on the couch.
Unbelievable.
That'll be the show.
You're right. We're gonna wrap it up.
Will you admit that Potvin doesn't suck?
Yes.
The hit on Nilsson was clean. Nilsson said so himself.
Yes, that's true. We talked about this before.
Yeah, we touched on this. Mike,
it's tough.
Oh, stop it!
It definitely is. I wish Coach Ed was here for this question a little bit before our time. But yeah, we were just talking about this before we hopped on, and I think it's a little outdated. Last week I was at the Carolina game, and I don't really remember much going on as far as that goes. So I think it might be over. But yeah, I think you're asking the wrong age group as far as if Potvin actually sucked or not.
Now, Ed, do you think that more fans in your generation of Ranger fandom feel that way about the Potvin sucks chant? That maybe it's just, like, A, what is it? B, why is it? C, like, let's move on. It's been long enough.
Yeah, I think we'll go with D, all the above. I mean, I think that's what it is. Hey, it's 2023, right? It's a different world now, and yeah, he hasn't played in a while. So I mean, like I said,
it's been a minute, right?
It's before our time, and a lot of fans. I mean, we're trying to reach for the younger crowd and stuff, and even Coach Ed kind of says like it's getting old at this point. It's kind of played its course, I think. So maybe we got to find a new chant. Maybe Hockey Night in New York and Rangers Ed can come up with something a little bit more creative.
Yeah, we can powwow over that.
I do enjoy screaming it every night, though.
That's the
Mike
guy.
actually does it from the couch, too, just to make himself feel at the Garden.
Now, are there designated whistlers for that? Because obviously it starts on the whistle. Like, do you know if there's somebody in the Garden that does it every night, or is it just like a random dude every time?
I was going to say, I could tell when that one guy, there is one guy that's very distinct. That has that one very, like, well-tuned whistle.
Yeah, like you got to have the right kind of talent to
try to mimic it, but there is one guy, I don't know what his name is, but I'll try to find out.
Can you
I don't think it's like anything official. It's not like a Dancing Larry type
Just
person.
gonna ask, is he still there? Is he still doing that?
Dancing Larry, he has a set time. It's like usually like 9 and change left in the third period, whenever the TV time is around that time. So he has a set time. But yeah, like Mike was saying, there's no like set person. It's actually really funny when someone tries to do it and runs out of gas. So they're like, beep, beep, and then they just like can't whistle anymore. So it's just like, all right, guy, good, nice try.
And has Dancing Larry introduced any new moves over the years, or is it kind of just the same shtick?
I don't even think he has a script, dude. I think it's different every single time for the last God knows how long he's been doing it. We're actually planning on having him on our show. We just haven't nailed down a date.
Okay.
But he did agree to come on, just a matter of when. So we'll definitely pass on the question.
Okay, very good, very good. So I have to say I'm impressed with the answer here about the Potvin sucks, and maybe it's seen it's kind of seen its time in the sun. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
socks is a great idea too.
But I like the Potvin socks. Yeah,
it took way too long for that. Such a genius marketing.
Yeah, I mean, bad job by Islander country, right, for taking that long to just come up with that. The Potvin socks, but credit to the man himself, Dennis Potvin, for making it happen. Because it's a brilliant way to be like, nah, man, they're not saying Potvin sucks. They're saying Potvin socks.
Genius. It was genius.
I love it.
Maybe that's why the Ranger fans aren't saying it anymore.
I think that might have something to do with it.
We're not trying to give them any free ads.
Because now it can just be like, hey, look, fellas, they're right here. It's the socks. So that's it for questions, Ed?
That's pretty much it.
I've
already hit the main screen.
Love it. So thanks for the update on the behind the scenes. Well, folks, always a pleasure to have you guys chime in the chat. Thanks a lot for throwing some questions at Ed and Mike over there. Good stuff. So I think we can wrap it up. So Eddie, hit that music. All right, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY and, of course, your favorite podcast providers for Hockey Night in New York. A big thanks to Ethan Sears of the New York Post for joining us. And, of course, a huge thanks to these fellas over here on the couch, Little Ed and Mr. Mike over there. Pleasure having you guys. Great job with the questions. Great job in the All-Star game. Absolutely great stuff. I want to thank all our great sponsors, Blue Line Deli and Bagels, flagship location at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington. You can also check them out at BlueLineDeli.com. They're an official partner of the New York Islanders. Also, a big thanks to Lost Farmer Brewing Company, located at 63A 2nd Street in Mineola. Check them out at LostFarmerBrewing.com. And also, folks, keep your eyes peeled on social media. We just booked a bunch more dates for the rest of the season for some viewing parties. We'll give you some more details on that soon, but we're going to have more fun there. It's going to be a great time. We had a blast with the guys at Rangers Ed last time, so we're going to keep that train rolling. It's going to be excellent. Also, a big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Check out mainstboardgamecafe.com, mainstboardgamecafe.com for them. And Stefan, buddy, thanks for coming down and filling in, pal.
My pleasure, anytime.
Great stuff, buddy. Great stuff. Where can we find your excellent, superior coverage of the New York Islanders?
You can follow me on Twitter at Stefen, STEFEN_Rosner, ROSNER, and NYIHockeyNow.com.
NYIHockeyNow.com. And hey, folks, thanks to you for checking us out one more time. A friend to great pal over there making the Funkos over there. Custom hockey sticks on Etsy, and then at Custom Sports Funkos over on Instagram. Check them out. You can check us out at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can check out myself on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey. And if you dig what we're doing here, please rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. We'll be back next week. For Ed, behind the mic over there, behind the glass. For Jay, we've been Hockey Night in New York. Thank you so much. We will see you next time.